Your grandma lied to you. Okay, not lied exactly, but that advice she gave you about working hard and everything will work out, it's missing some pretty important details. Here's something that bugged me for years. The hardest working people I knew growing up were not the richest. My uncle woke up at 4:30 in the morning, worked construction until his back gave out, and retired with almost nothing in savings. Meanwhile, I watched people who seemed to work half as hard end up with vacation homes. For the longest time, I thought there was some secret club I wasn't invited to. Turns out, there kind of is. But not the way you might think. And once I finally understood how money actually works, I was genuinely annoyed that nobody explained this to me sooner. So let's talk about why hard work, by itself, is not the path to wealth. And more importantly, what actually is. First, let's get something straight. I'm not saying hard work doesn't matter. It absolutely does. But hard work is like having a really good engine in your car. Essential? Yes. But if you're driving in the wrong direction, that engine just gets you lost faster. Think about it this way. A nurse working 12-hour shifts in an emergency room works incredibly hard, physically demanding, emotionally draining, literally saving lives. That nurse might earn $60,000 a year, maybe $75,000 with experience and overtime. Now think about someone who owns a few rental properties. They might spend 10 hours a week managing those properties, maybe less if they hire a property manager, but those properties could generate $80,000, $100,000 or more in yearly income. Who's working harder? Obviously the nurse. Who's making more money? Often the property owner. This isn't about one job being better than another. It's about understanding a fundamental truth about how money works. And that truth is this: you don't get paid based on how hard you work. You get paid based on how hard you are to replace. Let me say that again because it took me years to really get it. Your income is not determined by your effort. It's determined by your scarcity. A brain surgeon makes $500,000 a year, not because they work 5 times harder than a nurse. It's because there are way fewer people who can do what they do. The years of training, the specialized skill, the steady hands, all of that makes them hard to replace. But here's where it gets interesting. Even the brain surgeon hits a ceiling. They can only perform so many surgeries in a day. There are only so many hours. Their income is still tied directly to their time. And that's the real insight here. When you trade your time for money, you have a built-in limit. There are only 24 hours in a day. You can only work so many of them before your body and mind give out. The people who build real wealth figured out how to break that connection between time and money. They found ways to make money while they sleep, while they're on vacation, while they're doing absolutely nothing. Now, I know that sounds like some late-night infomercial garbage. Passive income, work 4 hours a week, buy my course. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is understanding the difference between being a worker and being an owner. Here's a concrete example. Let's say you're really good at making furniture, like beautiful handcrafted tables and chairs. You could work 60 hours a week in your workshop, making pieces by hand, and sell them for a few $1,000s each. With that schedule, you might make $120,000 a year. Great income. Brutal hours. Or you could take a different approach. You could design the furniture, hire 3 people to build it, and spend your time finding customers and growing the business. Now you're making less per piece because you're paying employees, but you're producing 5 times as many pieces. And suddenly you're making $300,000 a year while working fewer hours. Same skill, same industry, completely different outcome. The difference is ownership. This is what wealthy people understand that the rest of us often don't. They don't just work for money, they build things that make money. Now here's where I have to be honest with you. This isn't easy, and it's not fast. Anyone who tells you otherwise is probably trying to sell you something. Building assets takes time. It takes some money up front, and it often means delayed gratification, which is like kryptonite for the human brain. But here's the good news. You don't have to start a business or buy rental properties to start thinking like an owner. Let's talk about something most people have access to. Your retirement account, specifically your 401k or IRA. When you put money into an index fund, you're buying tiny pieces of hundreds of companies. You become a part owner. A very small part owner, sure, but an owner nonetheless. Let's say you invest $200 a month starting at age 25. You put it in a basic index fund that tracks the overall stock market. Historically, the market has returned about 7% per year after inflation. By the time you're 65, that $200 a month has turned into roughly $480,000. You didn't work extra hours for that money. You didn't trade more of your time. Your money made money, and then that money made more money. This is compound growth, and it's the closest thing to magic that exists in finance. It's why Albert Einstein supposedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. Though honestly, I've never been able to verify that quote. But it's still a great concept. The key insight is this: every dollar you invest becomes a tiny worker that never sleeps, never takes breaks, and works for you around the clock. But here's the tension. How do you invest when you're barely making enough to cover rent? How do you think about ownership when you're living paycheck to paycheck? This is the part that makes me uncomfortable because I don't want to be the person who says, just skip your morning coffee and you'll be a millionaire. That's insulting and mathematically ridiculous. The truth is, if you're earning minimum wage and drowning in expenses, no amount of financial tips will fix a structural income problem. Sometimes the first step really is finding ways to earn more. That might mean learning a new skill. It might mean switching industries. It might mean moving somewhere with better opportunities. But for most people watching this, there's probably some gap between what you earn and what you spend. And what you do with that gap matters enormously over time. Here's a mental shift that helped me. Instead of asking, how much does this cost? I started asking, what could this money become? That $50 dinner out? If invested for 30 years, it could become about $400. Does that mean you should never eat out? Of course not. Life is for living. But it does mean you might think twice about which expenses actually bring you joy and which ones you barely remember a week later. The goal isn't to deprive yourself, it's to be intentional, to understand that every financial decision is a trade-off between your present self and your future self. Now let's bring this all together. Why doesn't hard work make you rich? Because hard work, applied to the wrong strategy, just makes you tired. Because trading time for money has a ceiling. Because wealth comes from ownership, not just labor. The richest people in the world own things. They own companies. They own real estate. They own stocks. They own intellectual property. Their wealth grows whether they're working or not. And here's the part that nobody talks about. You can start small, stupidly small. One share of stock, $100 in an index fund, one side project that might become something bigger. You don't need a trust fund. You don't need to start a tech company. You just need to understand the game and start playing it. So, what do you actually do with this information? First, keep working hard. Seriously, hard work still matters. It's just not enough by itself. Second, start thinking about how you can own things, even small things. That retirement account you've been ignoring? Max out the employer match at minimum. That's free money, and turning it down is one of the few financial decisions I'd call genuinely costly. Third, invest in yourself. Learn skills that are scarce and valuable. The more irreplaceable you become, the more you can earn. Fourth, be patient. Wealth building is boring. It's supposed to be boring. Anyone promising excitement is probably promising losses too. And finally, reject the lie that working yourself to exhaustion is noble. Your goal should be to work smart, build assets, and eventually have your money work as hard as you do. Your grandma wasn't wrong about hard work. She just left out the second half of the equation. Work hard, yes, but work hard on the right things. Build something, own something, and let time do its thing. If this made something click for you, subscribe to Like Your 5. We break down money stuff that nobody taught us in school. No jargon, no judgment, just the information you need to actually get ahead.